Hey there, Impzone Podcast. We are back again to talk more TNA wrestling shenanigans, and I believe that we are here finally at Sacrifice, the final preview, which is pretty much realistically the second preview, I think. The other previews that we've done have been like one match for the most part, so this is only really the second proper preview, I guess, where we've had multiple matches to talk about. I think it's only like 3 matches to talk about. Basically, I think it's 2 pre-show matches to talk about and 1 main show match to talk about. And I will quickly talk about something else as well. I don't know when I'm actually going to do that. When am I actually going to do that? I might do it now, question mark. Yeah, I might do it just now, before we get right on into it, I guess. So I wanted to talk about Jada Stone. The young lady, this young lady, I think she's got a very bright future ahead of her. And she is very charismatic and very sassy, and I really like it. And I think I said it maybe before, but she reminds me a lot of Tasha before. Like, maybe not as far as, like, the fact that, Steels has never really been a babyface. She kind of was for, like, a hot minute there, but it never really, like, she was never really that thing for that long, and I don't really think it was sticking. I think that Stone is basically what, Tasha should have been as a babyface. Like, full of fire, full of, sass, still, but, just nice and, upbeat or whatever. Not what they tried to make her, just the plain, smile and hug baby face or whatever else it is. You can still be a baby face by being a little bit, not so straight-laced, I think. But yeah, I wanted to talk about her because she had a pretty decent appearance in the last few weeks. And I do see her as a future champion. Maybe not this year, maybe not, but maybe very soon. And I did want to say, like, Bear Bronson as well. That guy, all that you need to do with him to make him, like, main event level guy, at least for a heel, is give him a significant story and give him some significant wins. That's all you need to do. That guy I think he's basically ready for that position, as far as being a heel goes, at least. So, yeah. But anyway, I think that will be very cool to kind of see at some point. Some of these things, some of these younger talent getting opportunities eventually down the road. All right. I really liked the match that BD had against Mr. Ali, but now he's going up this one against Ryan Nemeth. And Ryan Nemeth had some okay matches. This is on the Countdown show here. I really haven't got a whole lot to say about it because I don't really know, like, what you're doing with this and where you're going with this. But BDE has kind of been on this losing streak for a while, kind of thing. And he's been trying to prove himself and whatnot and all of that stuff. Ryan Nemeth is one of the few people that is on this roster that, maybe besides the hometown man, has a somewhat equivalent, or maybe Brian Myers, but yeah, somewhat equivalent sort of win-loss record. Not very many wins, a lot of losses, basically. You wouldn't really talk about him having a losing streak because that's not part of his character, I suppose, or whatever. But I feel like this is more or less to set up a match between the Nemeths and Rich and BDE down the road. That or some other match down the road for BDE, because right now you're using him in that tag team role. So I really wouldn't think for the most part, and again, not that you can't do it, but that you would change to focusing suddenly on him being a single star so much. So this has to be for affecting a tag team match, I would say, later down the road. And I feel like the best way to do that is have, like, Nick Nemeth come in, help his little brother out, and then he wins or whatever, and, you know, BD feels cheated, and yada, 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 and then you get a match between them to sort of, as a tag team match with Swan, to be like, hey, you can't do that to my friend, and whatnot, all of that stuff. So, yeah, I that's where I see this going. I think that will be probably what happens here, or some amalgamation there of that. So I feel like Ryan Nemeth's probably winning here. The next match that's on the Countdown show, I feel like this match does not deserve to be on the Countdown show. I feel like this match deserves to be on the main show. This is a amazing match between two amazing wrestlers. Maybe the reason why it's on the pre-show is, or whatever you want to call it, the Countdown show, whatever, is because Tessa Blanchard is in this match. You know, and there's a lot of controversy and whatnot around her. So, yeah, I could understand it from that perspective, but then just don't use her, don't book her at all, you know? Like, if you're that concerned about her being booked, don't even have her on the pre-show. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so you mustn't care that much about her reputation. You know, like, and again, like, you mustn't care that much about her reputation because you've brought her back and continue to use her, you know, despite all the negativity that's been around her since, you know, she came back, or even since she really left, like, a couple of years ago. So, again, you're kind of saying, la la la, we're not listening. And sometimes that's all right, but sometimes that's like, well, why aren't you listening, kind of thing. Even if you don't agree with it, or whatever, and even if she's innocent, which I don't know whether she is or whether she isn't, or whatever else, I don't care about this sort of stuff, really. But every single time that I've got to talk about her in any form, I've got to go through this whole jargon of saying whether she did it or whether she didn't do it, or whether whatever, he said, she said, whatever. I don't care. I do not care. I just want to watch some freaking wrestling, bro. That is what I care about. You know, at the end of the day, with this, at least. Like, the rest of the stuff that I care about is, you know, some other things. But yeah, that is not really affecting into wrestling, I guess, for the most part. But yeah, again, I don't know, so I try to give the benefit of the doubt, or what have you. I'm not going to lambast her for, even if she did say those things, perhaps she realized, oh shit, the error of my ways, or whatever else it is, and all of that stuff, rah, rah, rah. I don't know. And I know Trey Miguel made some, you know, questionable comments a few years ago, or whatever else it was as well. You know, not racially based or whatever, but still, like, you know, so there's still a level there where, oh, whatever, at least allegedly. See, this is what I mean by every time I've got to at least say something else about it, because no one can actually, you know, provide, you know, evidence to support that, but whatever. Anyway, yes, for what this match represents and what the superstars that are involved in it, I don't think this match belongs on the pre-show. I think it belongs on the main show, especially because you're, like, looking at Jody as one of the top babyface contenders, and as Tessa is one of those, like, I don't know whether she's really a stepping stone sort of person at the moment, but she more or less is, unfortunately, in some ways, and that is because of a lot of these issues, I think. But also, I think she realizes, hey, you know, I don't need that spotlight so much. I can be just great and just do what I'm doing, and you know, go out there and continue to work and continue to be featured and continue to get my money. And that's really, something that I've got to, take thanks for. And would WWE ever have me? Maybe, who knows? But that's a very, like, iffy situation, I think. At a certain point, I did think that it was possible, but I don't know whether it is now. I think at a certain point, you have to start saying, well, they've had their chances. They could have brought her in and could have done stuff with her at this point. So, at this point, they mustn't want to work with her. And obviously, again, AEW doesn't seem to have any interest because they basically bring in anyone that has a pulse that they can bring in, that was formerly from WWE. But yeah, like, no, I just see this is like, as long as Ariana Grace is the champion, which she probably will be for a while, and I don't think Jody technically has a match up her sleeve anymore, but I still feel like you're trying to build Jody into one of the top contenders. And I still feel like you're still trying to do something with her and Danny. So I still feel like you're gonna, even if you're gonna only build to Danny and Jody at some point, even if it's not for the title or whatever, now, because maybe plans have changed or whatever else it is, I don't know. But again, like, I still feel like there is something there that they're trying to build towards, especially like in the next calendar year or so. Maybe not later, because again, like, at a certain point, it becomes like, well, people have kind of forgot that this was even a relationship, and people have stopped caring that it was a relationship because it's gone. The match that you could have had between them that would have been important has long since passed. So it's like, well, we need to sort of try to get to there while the iron is hot, while people have still got the interest for it, whilst people still remember, whilst people still can feel like, hey, this would be something worthwhile doing. So maybe at this year's Slammiversary or Bound for Glory, if you do it at Genesis, maybe, but like, it would have to be like within this year-ish. But yeah, like, again, I do feel like you would be saying, hey, like, what is that leading to, or is Jody getting the title or whatever, all that sort of stuff. So, but then who else is like gonna dethrone, the champion currently? So yeah, like, and maybe that'll be a triple threat. Maybe like I said this before, I said like maybe you'll get like Danny and Jody in the triple threat, and then Danny will win the belt, and then you'll go on for a few more months, and then it'll be like finally Jody gets back to face Danny or something or whatever. I don't know. Maybe that's not the plan. I don't know, but still, I would love it to be like part of the plan, at least in some regards, because again, like, there's so many challenges for Danny and so many stories that you haven't really wrapped up completely and that you could still go back to. So I could see her being a big time champion, and this is just one of them. You know what I mean? So I feel like as a singles match that Jody probably, like, maybe you're not going to pay it off here. I don't know, but eventually Jody's going to have to win this feud. Like, even if, like, I kind of feel like since Rebellion is like 2 weeks away, you could sneak by with Tessa winning and then build to some sort of hardcore match, or maybe even like a 6-woman tag with this. I don't know, because you've got Myla Grace and Harley Hudson on the outside for Jody rather, and you've got Mila and Victoria on the outside for Tessa. But this is a really personal thing, so I don't know. I don't know whether you want to do that, or whether you want to do a War Games style match or a Lethal Lockdown style match or something like that with this. That's something that could be interesting. So I could almost see this going either way, but I definitely more so see that Tessa could win this one, definitely. But like, in the next couple of weeks, I feel like Jody will win. So that's like where I feel like you're going. just out of shits and giggles, because they've kind of put some of these matches in what I would consider the match order, or order of the matches that are going to be on the show, so to speak, the one that I'm reading. So up first was Leon Slater versus Eric Young. Next is the Elijah and Hometown Man versus Frankie Kazarian and AJ Francis. That's probably the match that I would say is the most sleeperish, and the one that I could feel like is the one that you could knock into the pre-show or the countdown show, whatever you want to call it. Then you've got the triple threat match for the Knockouts title with Ariana Grace, Danny Luna, and Laying Lee. Then you've got Mustafa Ali and Steels versus Trey Miguel and Jada. I feel like you might have something here for some of the other people that have kind of been somewhat involved in this as well. So at least to help Trey and Jada out. I don't know whether I ever said like who I think was going to win this, but I think maybe Ali would win this. I think I said that actually, but I don't remember now. Then you've got Moose versus Eddie. I don't know whether I actually ever really completely said who I thought was going to win that. I think I said Moose isn't going to win, so Eddie's going to win, at least for now. Marsha Day versus Enya. This is no disqualifications, but it's still like fairly new to me. Like it's fairly new to the audience, so I still feel like there's a lot of room to go here. But then again, that's kind of good. You could kind of say, okay, let's get back to this in 6 months or whatever. So you've got so many women in this Knockouts division, and yeah, it'd be great to see more of what they can do in more of this space. So this next match is the only other new match that's been announced. So I'll take a pause just to not talk about it for a sec, because the main event is Steve Maclin versus Mike Santana. Okay, so the match that I haven't talked about yet, which I just mentioned, is Jeff Hardy and Vincent versus Brian Myers and Cedric Alexander for the tag team titles. No, not for the tag team titles. Question mark? No, it's just a tag team match. Okay. Because it doesn't say, where is it? It doesn't say title. Oh, okay. When they said, Vincent is replacing Matt Hardy, I thought, well, this is still a title match somehow, whatever. But it's not. Okay, well, with Rebellion, again, only 2 weeks away, I feel like, again, like what I think you would be trying to do here is finally put some, like, weight on the baby faces to make it like, oh no, hope they're gonna lose or whatever. Because again, like I said this before, like everything that you're doing at this show, you're kind of like bleeding it into the next show. So, or almost everything, at least for the most part. So this has to lead into the next like show, which is like only a couple of weeks away. Well, I say the next show, but the next pay-per-view. So again, I feel like Cedric and Myers are somehow, some way going to pull out the victory here. I will say, actually, I was going to say this, and I nearly forgot about it, but I'll talk about it here. The match that Jeff Hardy had, I think it was with Myers tonight. Yeah, it was with Myers. Was actually pretty good. Jeff actually performed really well in that match. So this sort of proves my thought, or somewhat of my thought, that it's more or less Matt that is having more issues in performing, at least in the ring, than what it is Jeff. Jeff can still do a whole lot of stuff, which is amazing, especially for a guy his age. But yeah, still, I feel like you have to be like, okay, yeah, even so, when you have a tag team, it's like hard, I think, perhaps to be like, well, everyone wants to see Jeff do his thing at the end of the match, basically, more or less. They want to see him do his big swan time at the end and whatever else. So that's kind of like the idea of like why Matt sometimes, or most of the times, is the one in there fighting and selling and whatnot, so that he can get the hot tag to Jeff, you know. And I think Jeff is just the more charismatic and more interesting one in many ways for a lot of people. So again, like there's another reason and another layer for the reason for that, so that you're going, you know, and again, that's the same thing that I feel like you're going to have to work with here, but at least you've got a more athletic partner in this one. Try to be nice to Matt, I guess. You know, and, you know, when your job is to basically only sell and do the handful of moves that you can do, which is like basically all these guys can do now, makes it much easier. But even then, like, it feels like sometimes they, or at least Matt more so, I guess, feels like the one who's tripping over himself more so, and making it look like, you know, he's in the leagues of like time to put you in a retirement home, I guess. So yeah, I don't know, but yeah, just that's why, again, like if they weren't the champions and they weren't holding the belts, if they were just like here and there challenging for the belts or whatever else it was, I wouldn't have as much of a problem with it. And I get that they're the biggest team and they're the people love them and all of this sort of stuff and whatnot, but that's becoming too reliant on them. Like, they're not going to be able to be out there by their own condition forever. So again, saying, hey, we're going to keep relying on these guys to be our main drawing tag team is just a recipe for like failure. Now, I said before, like, what you're trying to do, I think with this, is do something with the Righteous and the Hardys. So obviously this doesn't mean that the Hardys will lose the belts, but yeah, like that means like the system effectively will have another one up in some ways on Matt and Jeff and on the Righteous. You know what I mean? So there is more to this than just saying this is for them to get the belts. And I don't know whether they deserve the belts in some ways or whatever else it is. I don't think that like you've actually prepared them to be in that position or whatever else it is. But that doesn't really matter in some ways, because like from what I'm gathering, or what I'm sort of picking up what you're trying to put down, so to speak, or at least like my interpretation of it is these guys are more or less placeholder champions until the Righteous come along at some point and beat them. At least that's my, you know, perspective. Because again, you're basically using the Righteous as a, you know, basically new Hardy's team, kind of. They're this new team that's kind of wacky and weird, and people hopefully will come to like them and love them. You know, that's your goal. I was kind of hoping in some ways, and I don't know why, but I was kind of hoping for a match like the Broken Universe stuff with the Righteous, but maybe it'll still happen, but I don't know. I don't know whether that weaves into the story that you're trying to tell with them. So again, like, I feel like the system in this one are gonna win somehow, some way. I don't know really how or whatever. But yeah, like, it puts the Hardys at somewhat of a disadvantage. It gives you that reason to be like, oh, okay, maybe they will win, and they might win just to be like placeholder champions for a little while until the Righteous come along and finally beat them, or whatever else it is. So yeah, that's what I'm seeing from this. But it also, as I was trying to say, helps the Righteous because it gives them a opponent that they've still got to beat, and it gets the titles off of the Hardys, where it's like, oh, you don't want these two to face each other, except like in the most like extreme circumstances or whatever else it is. And maybe for Slamversary or Rebellion, like they've had a few of these ladder matches. So again, like let's bring that back. Let's do that again. I don't know. You could, like I said before, you could still do that. But yeah, I just don't know whether that's exactly where you're going and then that's exactly when you're going to do it or whatever. Like, yeah, I don't know what, because again, like you want the Righteous to feel like they earn the titles and that they gain. I think that, at least I think that. I think you want them to feel like they've won those belts and now they're solidified. So you often want to see them as like beating them like 1, 2, 3 in the middle of the ring, but aka the system. Sorry, should clarify who I'm talking about, but you know what I mean. So yeah, and yet I do think you could still do that, but yeah, I feel like if you're gonna win a ladder match like that or whatever, that is your time to be like, oh my god, they've done it somehow, some way, or whatever. You know, they couldn't get it done any other way or whatever else it was up until this point, but finally in this ladder match, they've somehow, some way bested the system and also maybe bested the Hardys. I don't know. Maybe that's what you're trying to do. I don't know. But again, that's kind of cool, you know, sort of thing that you might want to do. I don't know. But again, it's just, you know, or even same thing. It's like like I said before, maybe at some point I said before, it's like the Hardys and the Righteous have to face off against each other and whatever else it is and all this stuff, because this is something where you're trying to cook something between the two of them. So I say maybe the Righteous eventually get the belts at Slammiversary or something like that. Then at Bound for Glory, you have a match between the Hardys and the Righteous, who are the defending champions, and all of that. So it's like, now it's like, you know, not the reverse, but like the Uno reverse sort of thing of what it was, you know, when these two started feuding or started, you know, being associated with each other. The Hardys were the champions and the Righteous were chasing, or effectively, you know, because whenever you're in a tag team division, you're always chasing the belts, no matter what. You know, you're a tag team, you chase the belts. You might not be chasing the champions, but you're chasing the belts. So yeah, like that will be interesting to see how and what they actually give us when they give it to us. But yeah, this is something not only just for the Hardys for right now, for like in the next 2 weeks, which will be at Rebellion, for them to have a match with the system, whether they win or whether they lose. And I kind of feel like I kind of want them to lose because I'm just kind of sick of this thing going on, and I don't really think that they can perform as the champions. They can perform very well as contenders to the champions or whatever, or in certain matchups and things like that, but like they can't really perform as being the champions. So I feel like it's time to move on from them and time to put the belts on somebody else and say, okay, let you run with them for a few months or whatever else it is. Then the Righteous are going to win them, or then something else is going to happen and the Righteous are going to win them effectively. That's where I think we're going with this. So yeah. Plus, again, as I said, it gives the Righteous continued involvement in this story, rather than just being kind of like, I don't know, side characters or whatever else it is, or kind of forgotten about, or kind of waiting to twiddle their thumbs for a little while. It at least gives them something to work with here in some ways, but it does mean that they're, you know, like, again, that they're getting more losses in some ways, and they've got to accrue some wins. but you already also had them lose to like the Nemesis. So again, you've kind of got that B storyline there for them to kind of complete that before they complete this, maybe, so that helps them get that next step up or whatever. But yeah. So that is everything that's on the card, and we've already gone through everything else, I believe. I don't think it's very likely that there's going to be anything else on this show before showtime. If there is, there's probably not going to be enough time for me to come on and talk about it. So next time we'll be here, we'll be talking about the review of the show. A lot of time, I've said this a few times, especially in the recent video I did on the Rebellion pay-per-view, because it is only in a couple of weeks, that I felt like we will have to do more of like these sorts of things where a lot of these things are going to directly lead, or at least hopefully directly lead, into things that are happening on the next pay-per-view. So I don't exactly know when you're going to get to the Righteous and the Nemesis, because like you've got the Nemesis maybe facing BDE and Swan or something like that. Maybe that's like a through line for later on as well, for like BDE and that or whatever. I don't know. But again, it's like you've forgotten that Nick Nemeth has that call your shot. So, I don't know. But that might be good in some ways, because again, you might be like, when he does call his shot, it's more out of nowhere or whatever else it is. So, I don't know. But still, obviously that is something you're still trying to do at some point. I don't know whether you're going to do it at Rebellion, but like, you're obviously trying to do something with this, with at least Ryan Nemeth at Rebellion, I think. Maybe you are, maybe you aren't, I don't know. Tessa and Jody, obviously I still feel like that's going to pan out a little bit more later. Leon's not going to... I don't feel like Leon and Eric Young's going to really do anything. Maybe I'm wrong, but you could definitely see them having another match, potentially. Some sort of street fight, or I don't know, Ultimate X, Elevation X, something like that. I don't know. In the future, so we'll just have to wait and see. But again, like, I feel like either way, you're still going to be like, well, here comes Cedric, as soon as this is over. So there is that, and then there is the next show after these, so we'll have to wait and see for that. Elijah and the Hometown Man, Frankie Kazarian and AJ Francis match, like, I said this before, I feel like you're more or less trying to give stuff for AJ more long-term and Kazarian more short-term, at least with Elijah involved. So I would say Kazarian maybe in the next couple of weeks at Rebellion, potentially. The triple threat match, I don't really know what you're going to do with that, because I said before, without Jody Threat in this, I don't know, maybe you could still have Danny win it, and then maybe Jody does get her opportunity in the next couple of weeks. I don't know, but that does feel awfully fast, and it does feel like awfully out of the story that you're trying to tell, with Ariana being this prim princess type thing, and having had Santino Marella have been like tricked into like giving her this title effectively, and somebody coming along and earning it, like. But again, like, it's some, like, and besides, like, the Ariana, as I said before, being one of the only few people that have kind of stuck around for more than a couple of weeks at a time with TNA, or a couple of months at a time with TNA, it's another NXT person in TNA. So it's like, yeah, of course they're not going to stick around for very long. So you could obviously see her like losing the belt really quickly, and us moving on. I think some people really want them to move on in some ways, because they're kind of sick of this whole NXT crossover thing, because they've basically done, as I've said, they've done the same thing, so many times, and it's like, yes, at least there is some more story behind it with like that whole, deserving second generation star kind of attitude or whatever it is there. I don't know exactly what you're going to do with, if you're going to have a singles match between Jada and Tasha. Maybe I could see that potentially, but eventually I'm sure you will. But when, where, how, I don't 100% know that it'll be in the next couple of weeks. I said this before, and I wouldn't mind seeing Mustafa Ali and Trey Miguel, but honestly, I feel like it's like a little bit of an underuse of both of, well, especially of Mustafa Ali. But certainly it is somewhat of an underuse of Trey Miguel in some ways. He should be just doing more at this point, I feel like. So maybe that's what you're kind of trying to do with him here. You're trying to kind of build him up a little bit more to being in that main event picture. I don't know. But again, I could feel like you might be like, okay, let's do something else. I don't know. Yeah, but I definitely could see these two going on next week. I will say, though, I said Moose probably won't win and probably won't come back for a few more months or something like that. But you could certainly see him coming back and having another match in a couple of weeks. But then where are you going from there? You know what I mean? If Moose wins there, then it's like over kind of thing, almost. So, and for a story that's probably meant to last a full year, it's like, oh, that was quick. It's over in a month. You know what I mean? So, Mara and Enya, I don't know what you're really going to do there, because like where can you go from no disqualification? Yeah, not that there's nowhere, but like, yeah, not 100% sure. Obviously, I've already talked about the tag team match between Jeff and Vincent with Myers and Cedric. The hardest one for me is Macklin and Santana and whatnot. Because again, like, what are you going to do next in the next couple of weeks? What's the next biggest match that you can make besides Macklin and Santana 2? Well, this is actually number 2, but like, for a hardcore stipulation, effectively. Something like that. Like, you know what I mean? That's what we need. And maybe like that's what they should have done in the first place, but whatever. We'll have to wait and see. And again, I know I said this before, I'm very like on the fence in some ways, but I do think it would be more interesting if the title was on Macklin, even for a short period. Well, not a short period of time, but for a little while, for a few months, like we get to Slammiversary or Bound for Glory, and then we pull the trigger on something else. Of course, that does mean like the whole stuff with Nick Nemeth having his courier shot or whatever, and Eddie Edwards having his courier shot or whatever is a little bit like more redundant, so that doesn't make a whole lot of sense there. But yeah, I don't know. So I just don't like that is there that much, because like you've kind of forgotten that Nick Nemeth has that, and you kind of pushed him into the mid card. And yes, you're kind of like not really referencing it with Eddie, at least all that much, like the briefcase or the opportunity itself. Like you're saying, oh, he might challenge soon, but you're not selling this idea that he could challenge at any time. You're just assuming or sort of writing it as if he's just going to challenge, well, not next week, but you know what I mean? He's just going to challenge him, and it's not going to be a surprise out of nowhere or whatever else it is. It's going to be, predetermined and whatever else it is. Well, I say predetermined, but like it's going to be announced in advance, rather. Perhaps that's the better way to put it. And that is a good thing in some ways, because again, you have that distinction of being like, well, you know, again, you want to sell tickets. So what's a big time match that people kind of want to see? They want to see Santana and, Eddie going for the title. But this is another thing that I think people want to see. They want to see, like, and maybe again, like that Corey shot is for the rest of the year. I think it is. So, and like maybe like I don't know how you can do it with Nemeth. So, and that's why I said, like, maybe that's where this is going. I said, maybe you're getting Nemeth involved, and maybe he's, getting pinned, or maybe he's gonna cause the issue here. I don't know. But yeah, that's where we're at for now with this show. So yeah, I will be coming on, and I don't know whether to do two videos. One more looking at the review of the show itself, and one more looking at the preview of the next show. It does depend on what they announce, I think. So if they don't announce anything, I think we'll just talk about it in general and say, well, this is what I see that they're building towards, or or maybe it'll probably be a lot of the same things, but they might build some other new things or whatever else it is, or they might surprise me or whatever else it is, so I might not see something coming. But yeah, so I will try to do my best to talk about anything that they do announce in a separate video properly, so that it's more, clear and it is more of its own video. And if you don't really care to hear about the review of the show or whatever, you can at least find the same sort of basic information of this is what they were trying to do, or this is what I think they were trying to do, yada yada, and this is how we're getting here. Okay? So yeah, we'll try our best to keep up with it. It is only 2 weeks, so I do feel like, especially the main event and the main matches, they're going to have to announce and put together really quickly. More so, not out of nowhere, but they're going to have to put them together on this on this special episode, pay-per-view, whatever you want to call it. So, yeah. But anyway, guys, hope you're going to be good to one another out there, and hope you're going to have enjoyed this one, and hope that you will join me again in another one.